Good afternoon, scholars. Welcome to week 3 of Zoom. Unfortunately, this is a pre-recorded Zoom because I'm a little under the weather. I hope everyone is staying safe and COVID-free. This virus is no joke, you guys. I personally know about 10 different individuals that have tested positive for the coronavirus. And unfortunately, 2 of them have passed. They're not relatives, but just let you guys know it is real. And so please be safe, stay safe, and protect yourselves. Let's go over a couple housekeeping things before we get started with our reflection. All the learning tasks for the remainder of the 9 weeks, I'm sorry, for the remainder of the 7 weeks have been posted. So please look ahead and go on and get started on some of those tasks. You can work on them at your leisure. They are all there for you. They are all open for you. Some of them you'll need to collect some data for. So you probably want to look ahead and look through all the weeks just to make sure that you can get those assignments done. I know school is out across the nation due to this coronavirus, but it's very important that you guys still have some of those assignments that require you to connect or talk to some people. That's email, phone interview, or through electronically do SurveyMonkey. Those are platforms where you don't have to leave your house and you still can get the data that you need. You still have access to your principal. You should. If you don't, just let me know through an email that, hey, I'm not in a school right now, and I probably need a principal to do an interview on. I think it's only one student in the class that falls in that category. But if you do happen to need someone for that interview, I can probably connect and assign someone to help you out with that. Just let me know through email. You should be able to still communicate to your parents. So you'll need some data about from 3 to 5 parents, and also 3 to 5 of your colleagues, which are teachers or staff members at your school, for actually week 3 and week 6 assignments. Those assignments are not due. There's no deadline to them right away. As long as you have those assignments completed by the end of week 6, which I think is probably April 20th, you should be good to go. So you don't have to rush trying to get those assignments done, because I know we are all working from home, and things are just not as the norm when we're at school. So I definitely understand that, and I'm willing to work with you on that. But those assignments still can be done without you being on the campus. If you have any questions or concerns, please email me, text me, let me know, and we'll go from there. But again, you do not have to worry about getting those assignments done right away. Although one is week 6, I'll go ahead and look at that and see what's required, so I can start on that right now, so that you'll have ample time to get those assignments done. That's why today I spent the whole entire day uploading the rest of the semesters or 7 weeks course, the last 4 weeks activities, so that you'll have those things and know ahead of time what's required, so you can just be working on those at your leisure. Again, they are all open, so you don't have to wait until week 6 to do week 6. You don't have to wait until week 5 to do week 5 or week 4. You can work ahead and get those done at your leisure, as your time that you have allows you to get that done. So go forward, and again, as you are inputting your assignments, I'll spend time every week on grading those assignments. So the next thing is chapter 2 forms and video forms are due by the due dates, because again, you don't have to collect data for those. So just reading your chapters, and starting next week, you have videos for the next 3 weeks. So it's very important that you're watching those videos and you are actually reading your chapters and you're getting those assignments done. The videos are only 2 to 3 minutes, so they're not long at all. Just I want you to have some things to take away from them. Each one of the videos have a specific message that can help us as we really try to learn some culturally responsive approaches and strategies and techniques to help deal with our kids when it comes to classroom management, when it comes to school-wide discipline, when it comes to culturally responsive teaching. All of those videos will be beneficial to you to put in your toolbox. So those chapter read forms and those video forms, they are due weekly. So I'll be looking at due dates on those, because those are things that you can do right away. The final project is going to take you a little time, which is in week 7. So I advise you to just look at week 7 and see what it's about so that you can start working on that as well. I don't want you to wait until the last minute and then you kind of run out of time. And again, I'm telling you this because you guys, the university with these 7-week courses, they do quick turnaround. When the course ends on a Monday, they require me to have the grades to them on a Tuesday. So I can't spend all day Monday on the last day of class grading all the assignments and averaging your grades and all of those things. So as much as you can get done by the timeline, please do. And those major assignments that you're collecting and gathering data for your research, which is week 3 this week and week 6, please try to start working on those now so that you can get those. Again, it's no due date for those. So that's pretty much the housekeeping thing. So now let's reflect on the learning from last week. Let's start with the chapter reading. This last week was a really good read, huh? I noticed the trend in most of your responses, and I want to talk and speak to those trends because, again, it's common. Those things I felt would come up in most urban school districts. They come up in most schools of poverty where majority of the kids are living in poverty. These same things come up. So the first thing talking about is the trends, and I've seen that most people wrote about the lack of geographic opportunity and also unequal access to services. And that's definitely a big one, especially in urban city, and also rural areas too. If the school is if it's in poverty, where kids don't have a lot of exposure. They can stay 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes from downtown or from resources and have never ever seen those resources before. And so you guys, that's one important thing as you strive to become better teachers who are more culturally responsive, informed, as well as for those of you who are leaders or aspiring to become, excuse me, become leaders in the near future. You guys, if you work in urban city, most of those urban city schools are going to be Title I schools. It's very important that you use your Title I funds appropriately so that you can provide those kids with those experiences, excuse me, that they don't normally receive at home. And so one thing about when I always talk to you through my experience as a transformation school turnaround principal who have worked into these kind of schools, urban city schools. And so when I think about Title I funds, you guys, I always made sure my Title I funds, a percentage of them was geared to taking kids places and exposing them. So every year at my school, it was an elementary school, but I called my 3rd graders when I was a pre-K 3 school, I called them my seniors. So we always had a senior trip where I took them and exposed them to places out of state and out of town where we went beyond. It was full paid trips, full paid expenses, learning opportunities where they got a chance to go every single year. And then when I became a K-5 and got a K-5 school, same process. I exposed kids to college tours. I exposed them to museums. I exposed them to the surrounding areas, the surrounding states, and all that was done through Title I funds. So it can be done. It was a learning experience connected. So therefore, Title I funds were able to pay to take these kids all over the place. So they left with lots of exposure as elementary kids. It is so important, you guys, that we expose our kids as much as possible, because these kids are less fortunate. Their parents do not have. And a lot of times we underestimate it. We thinking that, hey, downtown is like 10 minutes away. And we find out that most of our kids have never experienced downtown or have never experienced the museum that's locally. So it's very important that we provide with those opportunities, and we don't assume as a culturally responsive teacher, as a culturally responsive school that's informed, we never assume these things happen. We make those things happen so that we know that those kids are getting those opportunities. The next one is a big one. It was the experience with trauma, you guys. You probably heard me talk about ACEs every single week, adverse childhood experiences. That is so important. Majority of our students come with at least one ACE, where they have one adverse childhood experience that they're dealing with. And you guys, most of our kids have 2 to 4 of them, where they are dealing with just experiences at home. And these are outside of school factors that play a part into that prison pipeline. Very, very, very important. So my thing is schools have to be equipped. Teachers, we have to be equipped to be able to deal with these kids. So having those culture responsive approaches and processes and strategies in place that you guys kind of discuss in your forums. I know Marie, she has been giving us a lot of good strategies and techniques that we can actually use in our classes, because her school use a lot of culture responsive or restorative practices at her school. So it's very important that you guys kind of put those in your tool bank. But my thing is, it's a twofold, because the school should be doing some things around these kids who are coming with this trauma, and also there should be some things done in a classroom where that you can kind of help those kids with those traumas. And again, that's the whole true purpose of culture responsive, understanding kids and meeting those kids where they are. And so some things on the school level, when I think about a school level that we did for these things, these kids. One, of course, we had a counselor, but I made sure I used all the district resources too. I used the behavior interventionist. I also did community and involved the community. Mental health is a big thing in the state of Louisiana. So we have lots and lots and lots of mental health agencies who become personal counselors to these students. So I made sure I connected to my students who had these trauma experiences. I made sure I connected with the parent first and built a rapport and learned the parent. But also in that, I wanted to know all the outside help that the parent used, or the parent had to help them with their kids. And that's how I connected with all of their mental health specialists and behavior counselors that were outside of the school. And I involved them in the school process. A lot of times when I couldn't get in touch with the parent, I'll always call their counselor. Their counselor would come up there and see them and all those things. So that was a school approach that I did, just to make sure that we was all on the same page and was able to service this kid to the best of our abilities, so that the kid wouldn't be put out of school, or this kid wouldn't be put in school suspension, or this kid wouldn't be suspended, or just put in isolation, that they can remain in their normal classroom setting as much as possible, even though they have some experiences that kind of affect them from learning. So it's very important that we understand that as leaders, we have to make those things happen for our kids if we want our kids to be successful. And as teachers, we have to make sure that we have a classroom set up to where those things can happen. And again, it goes all the way back to week one, those relationships. We have to build relationships with kids. And once we build those relationships, kids will open up more. Kids will kind of discuss and tell, what's going on with them more. We can have a better approach of dealing with them when they do act out, or when they do demonstrate or model some behaviors that we know that are not appropriate. We have a better way of dealing with those kids, and it's not always leading to referrals and ISS and suspensions. The next thing is, I noticed that the lack of education preparation and understanding race in class. You guys, that is so important. And I think on somebody post this morning, I kind of replied back. I truly feel personally that's the reason why there's a national teacher shortage. It's because our education programs do a great job of preparing teachers with theory on what the ideal teaching situation looks like, and it doesn't give them enough opportunities to go into urban city schools or go into these schools of poverty and really get field experiences, or even train around techniques and strategies like the culture responsive training, like this class that you guys are taking. I think this is a class that every teacher should be able to take and experience before they step into a classroom. But even if it was in a teaching program, I still will add more to this class where they're actually going into these schools and working with these kids. So it won't be a culture shock, and they won't be overwhelmed when they get their own classroom and can't deal with these extra behaviors, or don't have any treasures in their toolbox to really use when they get a classroom or half a class full of kids who have 3 to 5 ACEs. It's very important that we as leaders, and honestly as colleges, as where you're getting degrees from, educational programs, that we really begin to push these culture responsive courses out, so that teachers can be equipped when they go into there. Then they won't run and leave the profession in 1 to 5 years because they can't handle the behaviors that these kids are demonstrating. So then also those were the trends, but I do want to talk through some of the others because as you read this, I bet you're like, oh wow, our school do that and our school do that. And you kind of notice that and sometimes we kind of set our kids up for failure, and we contribute to them being part of that prison pipeline, like the Get Tough zero tolerance policies. That one, when I read this chapter, stood out to me because in all of my schools of our work, we've always had zero tolerance policies. Yes, we have the ones that's needed, like the no firearms and all of those things, but a zero tolerance for disrespect and a zero tolerance for this. And my thing is, it puts kids in a box, and it doesn't take kids' personal lives in consideration when we do those things. So we need to be very careful when we're doing zero tolerance policies and how we implement those policies on our campus, because again, we are putting kids in a box and labeling all kids in a one size fit all box. And when we do that, is we are taking some chances away from kids who have these ACEs, who have these this trauma, who's coming from these backgrounds, who are not trained, who don't have manners and all those kind of things. So it's very important that we understand that. And another one that stood out was the subjective teaching and administration practices. Because I taught your mom, or because I have a connection with your mom and I don't have a connection with your mom, the punishments and the consequences are different. Or because you are African American and I know you have a record and you are Caucasian and you really don't get in trouble. So the punishments are different with that, where the brown kids are being punished more and being put out of school more because of their backgrounds. And so I've seen a lot of that subjective teaching and administrative practice as well in this work. So I really hope you got a chance to really dive into chapter 2 and really read those out of schools and in schools factors, because they are really, 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 really evident in our schools today, and especially in our urban city schools, our low performing schools, whether that's rural or urban. A lot of these practices we see, a lot of these factors that we actually see, and by reading, you can have some some more tools for your toolbox to actually deal with these things and actually how to approach them when they come forth with that. And then you got, if nothing else, you do have research behind it too, why it's not a best practice when it comes to those zero tolerance policies and all of those kind of things. Because I know some of you are probably on your leadership team, or some of you are probably aspiring to be leaders. When it comes to that, you can kind of remember those things. I would give you direct feedback on your principal leader interviews by Monday. I did notice before I hopped on the Zoom that about 7 people have already submitted something. So that's good. That means you guys did get a chance to reach out to your principals, your leaders, and get that done. If you haven't got it done, remember there's no late penalty, no deduction of points for that. Just make sure it's done by April 20th and you'll be good to go. For this week, again, you're supposed to be doing some research, getting some information from some of your colleagues about their view on how culture responsive or trauma informed your school is. You've done research, you've heard from your principal. Now it's time for you to hear from what your colleagues have to say. So again, there's no deadline for it. I know it's a week 3 assignment, but you have until week 6 to get that done. Please follow directions in the rubric to write that up and get that information done, and you'll be good to go. So following on and going for this week, as we close, is chapter 3. Classroom management being about effective instruction, you guys. I really, really want you to focus and get a good understanding of those 4 elements of effective instruction for classroom management. You will read about that in chapter 3, but I really want you to focus on that section. This chapter heavily focuses on teachers being reflective. The book also goes and talks about the teachers use the term critical, where you're really looking at things, looking at your practices, what you're doing, the why behind what. Do you really know the why behind what you're doing, your instructional practices, your management practices? What is your why behind it? So are you really, really being reflective? You guys, I tell everybody that any teacher, any student that I come in contact with, if you are not reflecting, then you are not learning. Reflection is learning. So this chapter is really going to talk about that reflective piece on becoming reflective, and also as well as teaching kids to do the same thing. And then it also connects everything that we've talked about for these last 3 weeks around culture responsive, because culture responsive means you are reflecting. I'm requiring you to reflect on your behavior. I'm making a connection with you, a sense of belonging, a relationship. And instead of giving you negative reinforcements and punishments, I want you to reflect on what you did so that you are able to really figure those things out. And when we reflect again, we grow. So chapter 3 is another good chapter. But again, I want you to focus on the 4 elements of effective instruction for classroom management. Really reading that and understanding that piece of the chapter, because I think it can really, really help you in your teaching careers. Really, really, really can help you. It's got has some great information in there. So that's pretty much our reflection for this actual week. If you have any questions, you guys don't hesitate to email me or text me. And I'll make sure I get right back with you. So don't hesitate at all. Again, I can't say enough how important it is to be safe and protect yourselves during this season. And hopefully you'll get your assignments done. And again, if you have some trouble, some problems, some issues, you guys, that's what I'm here for. I'm willing to work with you on any piece of it. So just email me, let me know what's going on, and we'll work through it. Remember, at the end of the day, it's no excuses, you guys. And so we're going to end with our actual motivation, class motivation for this course. Excuses are tools of the incompetent. They are used to build monuments of nothingness. Those who specialize in their uses are seldom capable of doing anything else. Therefore, on today and any other day, when discussing cultural responsive classroom management, in my classroom at my school, I will not engage in excuses. You guys be great. Have a great weekend and be safe. Thank you.